Today, we're going to make a very basic printable 3D design using Autodesk Fusion. I have experience with a lot of the Autodesk software, including I've taught classes in AutoCAD and Inventor, which are two other Autodesk softwares. When I am working on my own or when I'm working in my business, especially when I'm working on 3D printers, Fusion just seems to be my go-to. It has features of both AutoCAD and Inventor kind of fusion together. It's also the cheapest option, but if you are a student, you can get any of the Autodesk products for free. On the left side of your Fusion screen, you're going to see all of your past projects. If it's your first time in Fusion, you probably won't see anything there. If you go to Open, you can open any other projects that you may have. So if you go to a downloadable site, so if you go to GrabCAD or something like that and you download something, you may be able to see it here. You may also have to open up your computer. So your past projects are going to be in this main screen, and then if you go look at your computer, you can go look at other areas of your desktop and your downloads and all that. So if you downloaded something from GrabCAD or Thingiverse or something like that, you're going to go to your download section and you're going to open that up. So this part that we're looking at right now is yellow, right? It's a mesh. So in Fusions, you have different ways of creating things. So this tray particularly was downloaded from one of those GrabCAD sites. I'll put a link for the tray itself at the bottom. The tray is, the download that I got, this tray that we're looking at now, is a mesh. I have harder times printing meshes, and you will not be able to print a surface, an Autodesk surface, or a Fusion surface. I've gotten the best 3D print, the easiest 3D prints, and the best 3D print quality using solids. So that's what I'm going to be doing in my recreation of this tray. So here I am measuring the length of the tray because I wanted to create a new tray with one dimension the same and then one dimension increased a little bit. But these dimensions are not the dimensions of the print that I originally had. If we look up, so I'm in the United States, it is not my fault that we don't use metric, but we don't. I wish we did. Sorry, get off that for a second. But if we look our millimeters to inches, it's not, that doesn't make sense. That wouldn't even fit on our print bed. But it's still helpful to know that you can measure things. For some reason, through the importing of that mesh, the dimensions got off, or maybe the dimensions were meant to, I don't know. But the dimensions were off, and I just wanted to show you how to measure anyway. I figured I'd leave that in there because that was an issue with the part, not necessarily with the process. So with creating your own part, the first thing you want to do is create a sketch. Sketches are 2D version of what you're going to see as a profile. So the most simple thing that you can do with a sketch is extrude, which means you're pulling it and you're adding a thickness to that. So let's go in, let's start our sketch, create a box. I'm going to add my dimensions to that and take a look at kind of the shape and see if I want to play around with it. I believe my printer is 220 by 220 millimeters. So here is the extrusion process. So you're going to extrude, you're going to select the surface that you want to extrude. The automatic selection will be to make it a solid. That's that first type line. You're going to select your part, the distance that you want to extrude. There are some details that you can change if you want, but this is the most simple. This cube on the top right corner is going to help us navigate. You can click on a face or a corner to get that type of perspective of it, or you can free rotate just by left clicking and dragging. The next thing I'm going to do, because I wanted to get those edges on this, so I'm going to do another extrude, but I'm going to do a different type of extrude. I'm going to select that surface option instead of that solid extrusion option. So under type, select that other one. And I'm also going to, in this case, add a taper angle. And what you're going to see with that is it's going to taper that wall. So that wall is either going to be getting larger, if we were to take a cross section of it, it would be either getting larger or smaller as you're changing that z-axis, right? So you're adding an angle to it. I wanted to, before I added that, I went back and thought about, let's round this out. Let's make it look a little nicer. So I'm adding a little fillet to the edges. You can set the radius right there, and I ended up going with a radius of 10, and I set all of my corners like that. When you make changes to a sketch that you've already completed and done some other thing with, those changes that you've made should reflect in whatever else you've done. So in the example we're using right now, we created a sketch, we extruded it, and then we modified that sketch. The extrusion should show the modification as well. Would the walls have modified as well? Potentially. Potentially they would have. Sometimes if you have too many chains of relationships between your different elements, it can cause some glitching when you make changes. So the simpler those changes will impact the object, the more likely that you are to have a successful change in your software. One last thing I wanted to look at with our mesh object here is if you look, you can see all of these little gray lines in it, and those are all different. Each enclosed shape, each enclosed area is a face or a surface, meaning that this mesh version has a lot more geometry than ours does. You can see ours has a bottom plate, the walls, and the corners. For 3D printing, the simpler the better. Something like something like the mesh would have a better quality look. And this is not a hard and fast rule, but one thing I've noticed is that solids print better. Meshes tend to do better in, I would say, like virtual spaces. So if you're trying to create a custom content for something, like video game elements are often going to be out of meshes, created from meshes. A lot of complex solids will also be created from meshes, but when we're talking about simple 3D prints, my preference is always to work with a solid. The last thing we're going to need to do with our part is to export it to make it printable. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to our little file thing here, go 3D print. You can also export as long as you export to a 3D print file type. That's easy. This to me is easier. Select your part. If you have your 3D printer plugged in, you can send through to a 3D print utility. I work with SD cards, so I'm actually going to put this in my slicer first. So I'm going to save this into my downloads onto my computer, and then we can move over to our slicer software. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay updated on our latest videos. And if you're interested in our services, head on over to our website to learn more about our expertise in 3D printing, maintenance, reliability, asset management, engineering, drawing, and design. We're here to help you bring your ideas to life, so join us on this journey. See you in the next video.